Welcome into another episode of our Cubs Recap Podcast. I'm David Kaplan. My partner out on the road is my guy, Gordon Wittenmyer. Where are you?
Cap, I'm in the middle of nowhere, which makes, I don't know if you can see behind me, you see that highway?
Yep.
That makes that the highway to nowhere. I put in the GPS. That's where the GPS said I'd find the Cubs this week after that last road trip.
Guess what? I smell a winning streak coming.
You smelled a winning streak before that 1-8 streak or whatever the hell it was.
They were 2-7 on the road.
Look, nice game Tuesday night. Mervis hits a home run. Morel hits another friggin' home run. And Smiley pitched well again. Man, they can't do anything on the road. That's why GPS sent me here. Road to nowhere. That's 2 in a row, man. They're like 3-13 on the last 2 road trips?
Yes, they have struggled mightily, no question. So let's start with the state of the starting pitching. Hayden Wesneski is now pitching for Iowa. Kyle Hendricks looks like he is close to getting.
Can I take a time out here just for a minute? Because sure. Our longtime colleague and longtime friend, I just wanted to condolences and a few prayers for Rick Hummel and his family. Hall of Fame baseball writer, died suddenly a couple of days ago. None of us expected it. He'd had a short illness and was pretty aggressive. But the baseball world, a lot of players who he was around spoke up and spoke out for him, and obviously everybody in our business. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, and the amazing thing was that Friday day, Bernie Miklas, a good friend of mine who's a sportscaster and writer in St. Louis, reached out and said, "You want to come on my show?" He said, "Sure." And he said his voice didn't sound strong. And that night he passed away in his sleep. So just tragic. He and Mike Shannon, both essential members for decades of that Cardinal Nation. So our deepest sympathies to the Cardinal Nation on the passing of those two over the last few months.
Yeah, very sad week in St. Louis baseball.
Yes. So, and despite that, I wore my boring on a bat T-shirt because that's my disdain for the Cardinal team. Anyway.
And apparently the place. Yeah.
Yes. So let's get into Hayden Wesneski. He pitches for Iowa now. I think Kyle Hendricks is about ready to come back. So
maybe Saturday.
Maybe Saturday. What is your thought on the state of the Chicago Cubs rotation right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I ran some numbers the other day because I wanted to make sure that I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. This is the key to the whole season. And Cap, it might be this next week. Honestly, this next week to 10 days could be the whole place where either it starts spinning a little away from them or they can get it back on track. And that's because, as you alluded to, Kyle Hendricks is back probably Saturday, the next time they need a fifth starter. And Wesneski went down to AAA. What did he do in his first start? 5 innings, no hit ball. So maybe he's finding some more command and can be a piece that comes back up. But Jameson Taillon, who pitches in this Mets series, I believe Thursday,
he does
has not looked good, and they might need to do something with him at least short term. But let me give you some numbers. This team was 12-7 at one point, and the rotation was the backbone of that. Like most winning teams is the case. The rotation was 8-5 with a 2.71 ERA. And even for a week or two after that, they were performing their overall numbers among the league leaders as a rotation. They're 9-19 since then, even with Drew Smiley's really good performance on Tuesday. They've got a 4.87 ERA as a group since then, which ranks a lot closer to the bottom. And that's Jameson Taillon making 4 starts in that stretch without any of them going 5 innings and giving up 17 runs in just barely 12 innings. And you've got even Strowman had a nearly 5 ERA in that stretch. Really, the only two guys that have done anything good in that stretch are Justin Steele and Drew Smiley. They're a combined 6-1. Steele 2.72 ERA and Smiley 2.78 in that stretch. Everybody else has been underperforming or slumping, and that's what's wrong with this team right now. If Kyle Hendricks can come back and be anything close to the Kyle Hendricks that we know over the years, that's a huge stabilizing force for this club, and that could begin to right the ship.
So in watching both Justin Steele and Drew Smiley, the whole key to everything, and as it is for most pitchers, is fastball command. It's been outstanding. And then they both have really good, as they like to call them now, sweepers. And they're
Smiley can pitch a little backwards because his curveball's so good. If he's commanding that, he can get away with that. We've seen him do that a couple times.
And then Jameson Taillon, actually, strikeout numbers per 9 innings has been pretty damn good. But his fastball command's been terrible. And so he's pitching against first Houston. Morel misses a ball in left field off the bat of Jose Abreu, which should have been caught. They end up giving up 4 runs in the first. He pitches 3 more innings, doesn't give up a run. I'm thinking, all right, they didn't play good defense behind him. Well, then he pitches against the Philadelphia Phillies, and fastball command again is terrible. He has to throw one over the middle of the plate with the bases loaded, and Kyle Schwarber hits it from here to wherever. I mean, crushes it. That ball way up and way out in the second deck, and all of a sudden the Cubs get destroyed, and he's knocked out of the game. I don't think they're at the point of doing something with him. He just got to pitch better.
Well, yeah, and when I say something, I mean short term, and that requires being able to plug in Hendricks, and it maybe even requires bringing Wesneski back. But you might find something, a DL thing. Look, maybe that groin isn't 100%. To put him on the IL a little bit earlier. So you might find a way to kind of get him out of the mix, get the pressure off, work on a few things, and then put him back in. Just something temporary. I mean, the guy's a veteran. Or you just let him work through it, and he's your weak link for a while. He's been your weak link for a while. But as long as Strowman's pitching well, Steele and Smiley keep doing well, and you bring and Hendricks can come in and do something, then you can be okay with that one guy trying to figure out stuff at the end. The problem is they had a couple other guys start to hit clunker stretches, and then now all of a sudden your whole rotation, you're having to bank on 2 guys to give you something each time just to avoid a long losing streak. And that's not a recipe for any kind of success.
Okay, now, first of all, congratulations. You were at your child's college graduation. That's why you're out on the road, driving back on the road to nowhere. Your child is on the road to somewhere, so congratulations.
She's on the road to somewhere, so
correct.
A lot smarter.
So congratulations to your daughter and to your family. But while you were gone, Jed Hoyer met the media yesterday and said, this is not a David Ross thing. This is on me. The formula that we've used to build some pretty darn successful bullpens did not work so far, and that's my fault, not David's, because David's taken a lot of heat on social media, whether it's lineup construction, bullpen usage, and guys are letting him down. That said, when you look at David's lineup construction, the comment that haunts him is, I just don't know how we're going to find at bats for Christopher Morel. He's got 9 home runs in 12 games.
Look, I'm gonna give you your point on that, except for this. I just want you to keep this in mind. And this goes again back to Hoyer. When Ross is saying that, he's saying that with a healthy Nico Horner, a healthy Cody Bellinger. Hosmer's still on the team, I think, at that point, and he's got all these positions locked up because that's the roster that he got handed. So keep that in mind when you're criticizing him for saying there's no place for him in the lineup. The other thing is, keep in mind what Hoyer also said when this homestand opened. He was asked about Morel and whether he basically effed up by keeping him in the minors so long. I think he had something like 11 homers down there. So he's got like 20 homers already, right? And he said, well, that's one way to look at it, and you might be right. But the other way to look at it is maybe those weeks there got him to the place he is now so that he could come up here and step right
He
in.
did not need 5 weeks in the minors so I could watch Eric Hosmer and Nick freaking Madrigal play.
Listen, I'm with you. I agree with you on that. So I do think that's on them. And we saw enough of his success, even if it was 2 weeks earlier, that you could have probably found a spot for him. One of the other things that's happened in the last 2 weeks, by the way, is Patrick Wisdom's fallen off the face of the earth with a lot of swings and misses again. So he's in one of those places. So you're going to taper him back while you plug somebody in. But Cap, so the big question is this, and I know you and I both like Hoyer a lot personally. How much should Hoyer be on the hot seat for what's going on right now if this thing doesn't turn pretty quickly?
Well, and I think Jed would say to you, hey, put it on me. I'm the team president. I'm not saying anything drastic, but he absolutely has to wear his more than the lion's share of this simply because that is the roster he constructed. Now, today they made another roster move. They sent Nick Birdie back down. They brought Javier Assad back up again. That, to me, is just changing the deck chairs on the Titanic. I think he has to go out and make a move. I'm not telling you you're trading Pete Crow Armstrong, Matt Mervis, and Christopher Morel to go get the best reliever in the game. But there's got to be somebody available in Oakland, Kansas City, somewhere that has no hope that they could trade to the Cubs.
Yeah, the problem is, Cap, at this point, we're not even in June. So what you're looking at is waiver claim guys, release guys, and you've seen a couple teams pick up guys like that just as flyers. But the real guys of any quality you're not going to be able to even discuss anything substantively until like mid-June. So even if you wanted to jump the market, we're weeks away from that. The problem is what he put together in the meantime, the Michael Fulmers of the world and some of these other guys. That's the problem. And so even when you get your rotation going, and we saw this earlier in the year, the rotation was going real good. Why were they losing close games? Because they couldn't hold leads late. And at times not score a lot of runs, but mostly because they couldn't hold leads late. So that's, again, on him. And I don't think there's anything you can do about it for a couple of weeks unless you keep, rotating the deck chairs, like you said, and maybe even bring in a flyer or two off of waivers or a cheap minor trade and see what you can patch
what would
together
it cost
until
to get
mid-June.
Aroldis Chapman?
Probably too much right now because they're not going to move him until they see a market shape up unless you throw the kitchen sink at him.
Right.
Well, why would you? You're going to wait till that market comes up. So it's going to cost you PCA or whoever, which is crazy, which is stupid. Correct. So you don't do it.
So they won't do that. All right, let's also talk about the topic everyone wants to talk about. I sent out a tweet last night in response to all these people talking about all it said was, I'm paraphrasing, he spent 5 weeks in Iowa with a bunch of laughing emojis and some baseball emojis. And people are all tweeting, what are they doing? How to explain to me, and I know you said Cody Bellinger was still there, Hosmer was still. As you look at Hosmer's struggle and you look at Nick Madrigal's struggle and Miles Mastroboni, and you see this kid hitting the shit out of the ball in Iowa, at some point do you not go, boy, he's got passion. He's a really good dude in the room. He's got power. You know what? Get his ass up here.
I'm with you, especially when you're talking about the Mastrobonis of the world. Look, you can bring him up and send him right back down. You can bring him up for a week. If it doesn't work, send him down. If it works great, you leave him here. You could have done that when you had some of these little stopgaps that you needed filled. I can't explain it in a way that makes sense to anybody. We see what he's doing right now. I know that Jed talked about the way he finished last year, chasing a lot of bad pitches. And so, because it was about, a year ago when he broke in, and we were raving about him then. We raved about him for a month after he broke in. Right about this time of year. And, rightfully so. He had all this energy, and he was doing all these great things. Now he looks like an even better hitter. But if I'm not mistaken, he came up from Double-A last year. So
he did. That is correct. Never had spent a day in Triple-A.
So there was that value to be had. And again, one of the things they did by spending $300 million in the offseason was commit to veterans. They committed to filling these roster spots this way for roughly 6 weeks, a quarter of the season. That's kind of what you do when you commit to that's your first real benchmark when you start making changes of substance because things aren't working out. That's why that's about when we saw Hosmer get DFA'd. A guy like that, a veteran guy like that, you're going to sign him, and part of the deal when you're signing him, because he can sign anywhere, same price. Remember, other teams are picking up the tab. Is that you're giving him that respect and courtesy as a veteran. You're committing something to him for a period of time, and about that quarter pole mark is about what the fair time to give him is. So that's probably your Morel. We talked about him in terms of Mervis all this time.
Yep.
But with the way Morel was going, that could have been your lever to pull. But again, you committed to all these veterans with this $300 million offseason and trying to catch lightning in a bottle early to maybe see what you can do before the trade deadline. And most of the guys, for the most part, are, Taillon's not performing and Hosmer didn't perform. But Bellinger's doing more than some people thought he would do. Strowman came back. I know they signed him a year ago, but he came in and started off real strong. And Smiley, who they re-signed, obviously he's doing the job. So a lot of these guys were doing the job.
The interesting thing is going to be in the matchup tonight. You and I are taping this on Wednesdays. You come back from your daughter's college graduation. Again, congratulations to her. Is Strowman against Senga. I've got to think Strowman's pitching with a chip on his shoulder to stick it to the Mets. And Kodai Senga is really good. They moved him from yesterday to today, give him an extra day of rest. I think it's a hell of a matchup tonight. I'm excited to watch it.
I don't think this is quite apples to apples, but I kind of like thinking about it this way. They didn't give Strowman the money. They didn't even make him an offer that year he became a free agent. I talked to him at the end of that season about that. He said he thought that was strange. Then he gets on the open market. The Cubs sign him right before the lockout, 3 years, $70-something million.
71.
And then we cut. Now, fast forward an off season, and Kodai Senga becomes available. They give him $75 million.
And they got Verlander.
So when you talk about maybe having a chip on your shoulder, hey, I was right there. I'm a pitcher. I'm a $20 million pitcher, and you didn't even say boo to me when the time came. And you went out and got these guys. Screw you, and let's see what happens. Meanwhile, Senga's the other guy, one of the other guys that you could make the case would have kind of been Strowman's spot. I agree. That's going to be fun to watch just from that storyline.
All right. Before we wrap up this podcast, I've got to ask you, would you give Marcus Stroman an extension? Again, there was a report this week that Marcus Stroman and the Cubs have had discussions about getting an extension done because he has an opt-out after the season. He makes $25 million or thereabouts this year, opt out after year 2, 1 year left on his deal. He'll definitely opt out if he pitches reasonably well because the money for pitching is crazy. Would you extend him now, and how long and how much?
I'd let it play out. I'd let it play out at least through July. Get 2/3 away through, or 2/3 away through this season. See where we're at. See what the team looks like, whether you're buying or selling, and then kind of looking at that next acquisition period in the offseason and what's out there, because there's no rush here. Like, you got him. If he doesn't opt out, you've got him for another year. If he does opt out, it's because he's pitching really well. If he's pitching really well, and this is a guy that's had a pretty good track record, very good track record when he's been healthy in his career, then you got money. You got all kinds of flexibility. And I'm not sure how many top-notch pitchers are out there on the free agent market going into next year. I would definitely talk to him, but I wouldn't feel the need to rush. I don't feel the need to rush. You kind of, if he doesn't pitch really well the rest of the way, or he winds up hurt or something like that, you got him for another year anyway because you're stuck. So I would just let it play out and see how he looks alongside the likes of these other guys. Plus, let's not forget, Wesneski's probably going to be back. Let's see if he settles in. And Ben Brown is knocking on the door. So
Ben Brown is knocking on the door. And I went back and did a little research on Ben Brown. So he was considered to be a lock, big-time college prospect. and then got appendicitis, lost a bunch of weight, and the only offer he got was from Siena, and he's been trying to climb his way back and throwing the heck out of the ball now.
I'll tell you what, if he pays off and if Mervis pays off, you got to give this Cubs scouting department a lot of credit, because Mervis was another one of those guys. He was a late bloomer in college because of some issues. There were a lot of people thought he was going to be a pitcher because he had a big arm, and his bat developed late, and he winds up undrafted only because it was a 5-round draft. But nonetheless, that became a scouting victory by the time they went to a recruiting process after the draft. So if those two guys pay off, man, props to the Cubs scouting department.
All right, Gordon,
how often do I say that, man?
How about that?
I never say that.
You never do. Get home safely. I'll get you one of these boring shirts. Take that, Cardinals fans. We'll see you soon. I'll see you hopefully out at Wrigley soon.
Hey, shout out to Robert Myers, too. Thanks for the nice comment on Twitter. Appreciate it.
Robert, thank you, man. He's a good man. He's a diehard listener of the podcast. So, again, the Cubs Recap Podcast available right here on our YouTube channel and anywhere audio-only versions, wherever you get your podcasts. Gordon's headed home from his daughter's college graduation. I'm David Kaplan. Have a great rest of your day. Take that.